These are the people who, help with the FMCSR's uniform and inspections, but yet set the out of service criteria. We can agree on some of that stuff, and some of the stuff maybe not so much.
Landline now, welcome back. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance recently held a workshop in Louisville, Kentucky, bringing together government officials, law enforcement, and industry stakeholders to talk about roadway safety. But what really goes on at a CVSA workshop, and why should you care? Doug Morris, Lewie Pugh, and Paul Torlina are about to tell us. All three went to the latest workshop in mid-April, and now they're here in Studio A. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
It's a fantastic time I have when I'm on your show.
And a fantastic time you had at the CVSA workshop as well, I'm sure. I'm going to start with just kind of a basic question here that I basically posed there at the top. What does go on at a CVSA workshop? I know they've got a number of meetings throughout the year. What does it look like? What goes on, generally speaking?
Well, generally, it's the coalition of both industry, law enforcement, federal regulators, and they all get together and basically talk about the rules and regulations of Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and the FMCSRs, as well as the out-of-service criteria, and to decide whether or not there should be adjustments to out-of-service criteria or the policies of the states enforcing commercial vehicle laws.
So all very important stuff. The question being, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway, why attend? What do you at OOIDA get out of it? And maybe more importantly, what do the other people that are there get out of you attending? I'm talking law enforcement, I'm talking those government officials. That conversation or those conversations that take place probably are pretty important, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason we attend is because, like Doug said, these are the people who help with the FMCSR's uniform and inspections, but yet set the out of service criteria. We can agree on some of that stuff, and some of the stuff maybe not so much. The important thing to remember, I know there's a lot of people who complain and argue, and there shouldn't be a CVSA and all that kind of stuff. And, we can debate that another day. The important thing, the reason that we go, and the important thing to remember is that's the body that's in place. That's who's in place. That's who sets the rules right now. That's who sets the regulations right now. So if you want to be a part of that conversation, you have to go be a part of it. I mean, it's easy to stand around and complain and say we shouldn't be doing this stuff. And I get that. I understand where you're coming from. But at the end of the day, if you want to make a difference, you got to be a part of it. That's why we do a lot of things we do at OOIDA and are part of it. But yeah, I mean, an important reason for us to be there is because there's not a lot of people there with small trucking companies there. It's mainly as far as from industry. It's usually vendors, people trying to sell the next latest, greatest thing, along with big trucking companies, big fleets, stuff like that. And so we are there as a representative of the 1 and 2 trucks and small fleets and then drivers, and it's how they do it on that. So, and it gives us an opportunity when they're doing something to say, hey, you're putting a disadvantage to a small business carrier, you're putting an advantage to a big motor carrier, or this is something that just won't work. Our guys can't do it. How do you expect them to comply with this? Just different stuff like that all the time.
And I imagine that's something that they appreciate, at least I hope they appreciate it, that they're getting that point of view that they may not otherwise be thinking about. Do you get feedback like that from the folks that you talk to there, again, appreciating what you're bringing to the table?
Yeah, I learned that firsthand this time around. This was my second time going to CVSA. The first time I kind of tried to be more ears than mouth. This time I did speak up in one of our sessions about something that we felt was disfavorable or unfavorable to small truckers. And I was the only one in the room speaking, but after the committee adjourned, I had a couple people come up to me and say, hey, thanks for speaking up. I agree with you, which that's great to hear. And it's a bit validating, but at the same time, it's very frustrating because you're thinking to yourself, well, where the heck were you when it was time to speak up and you sat there silently? So I've kind of learned just from that very experience, it's important for us to be there because we are not afraid to voice that in the room. Yeah. And get that out there to the people that we feel need to hear it.
Can you talk about what that issue was?
Probably not, but okay. The gist of it was that we felt that what was being discussed was going to put small businesses at a disadvantage compared to large fleets. And the people who agreed with us were in a similar position, but just weren't willing to speak. Now, maybe they're afraid to speak because they feel like that would get their business targeted, or law enforcement may somehow look on them disfavorably. But for whatever the reason, OOIDA doesn't have that concern. And so we can go in there and speak what needs to be spoken and rattle some cages as needed, I guess is probably the best way to say it.
Well, and let's talk about that too, about rattling cages, because obviously OOIDA's involvement in these workshops goes back a number of years. I'm not even sure how many, but quite a while. Are there examples of these conversations leading to change? Maybe CVSA was considering something and based on OOIDA's input decided not to go ahead with it, or something in that vein, or success stories essentially. What can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. It gets tabled or dies right away because of stuff that we say. Unfortunately, there's things that get through no matter how hard we fight pushback. But there's been a lot of stuff. I mean, I remember a few years ago, they wanted to come up with a whole nother out-of-service rule for the DEF fluid. And I'm like, or should it just follow the other leaking? Should it fall under criteria of all leaks, or but somebody wanted to make their own
special category
DEF rule of leaks. And it's like, why would you do that? And they're like, wow, this is hazardous. And they're coming up with all these things. And I'm like, no, it's not. I said, I know, a guy with a truck and his tank he got that stuff put in the wrong tank and had to clean everything. It's not going to hurt you like that. And so it just went back under leaks. And there's been stuff they floated. Last meeting, there was something about frac sand in the boxes, and they were arguing about that. And I had experience, and so I pulled that frac sand. I'm like, that's not how that works at all, and explained to them how the thing really works.
Right.
And somebody from enforcement had submitted this and didn't know how it worked. And, of course, we don't know what we don't know either. But the good thing was I was able to explain that, and it just died immediately. And there's a lot of stuff like that dies. Yeah. Which is a good thing, because either us or, like in vehicle, the committee I'm on, there's a lot of people. There's people there from Meritor and Bendix and just all Web Wheel and different stuff like that too. So sometimes the vendors can say, hey, this isn't right or isn't correct. It's kind of funny sometimes because some of the stuff they show, I think that probably should be out of service, but a vendor will say, no, it still works. Even though it looks like that condition, it can still work effectively.
Yeah.
And so they let it die.
Well, even going back how many years, the Minnesota State Patrol, right? The fatigue inspection
the Minnesota fatigue
issue
program. A lot of states were thinking about bringing that on board with their enforcement programs, and obviously we fought tooth and nail at the committee meetings, and they just didn't listen to us. So we wound up suing them, Minnesota winning, and then the other states just dropped it all together.
Yeah. Looking at kind of the issues that are swirling around right now, excuse me, the topics there at CVSA this time around, what kind of caught your eye? What types of things should we be thinking about or looking at right now that CVSA may be considering?
Well, one thing is the personal conveyance. That we've been fighting this issue for a number of years at CVSA. CVSA has actually petitioned FMCSA to put a mileage on personal conveyance. They were denied those petitions. They are going to petition FMCSA again, but it's a different avenue. They were saying, hey, we want actual clear definition of personal conveyance and guidance, but there's not going to be, by understanding, a mileage to it or anything like that. I think they're going to be more lenient as to personal conveyance. Our example to them was if we're done, a driver's not under dispatch, he's done his load and wants to go home, why isn't that personal conveyance? And they're saying, well, they're going back to the terminal. And well, no, he's going back to home. But it's okay for that driver to get in his truck and drive to California and go party on the beach that weekend or what have you. And they say, well, it's different. It's that is personal conveyance. He's not going back to his terminal or her terminal. And when they started thinking about it, they realized that we're right on this issue. And I think you'll see the definition possibly come from FMCSA, but personal conveyance is just that, personal conveyance.
Doug, Paul, what else? Lewie, Paul, what else caught your eye?
A couple things. They brought up an air brake and then back in against vehicle that some states or a guy, like say your glad hand gets pulled out on your service line, and and they got inspected, and then they not only did they write him for that, but they wrote him for every brake not working, everything in the brakes on every axle in the trailer. None of it worked. Well, no, it didn't work because there was no air
Yeah,
to
of
it.
course, yeah.
So anyway, so they were arguing back and forth for a little while about how because if it's an electric plug that pulls out, you get that violation.
Right.
But if you plug in the electric, they allow you to plug in the electric plug then before they check the rest of the lights. You're still getting the out of service or whatever for the light thing not being, but it's just that plug. You don't get all these other things. They don't stack all this stuff.
Right.
So that was whether they should stack it with the air brakes, do the same, allow you the same thing for a glad hand, and they finally kind of came to a consensus is that what they should do, which makes sense. A guy can make a sharp turn, and I think can pop out once in a while.
Sure.
So that was a big argument for a while, but went out. And a couple other things was like if you have a curtain side trailer, some of the curtain sides they have a weight rating for securement, actually a securement weight rating, and they decided that they're not going to count that at all. That if you're using a curtain side, you still have to have your load strapped or whatever inside
Gotcha.
correctly. And it's because if the tarp's torn, if the tarp gets to a certain age, does that lessen the strength of it and the working load limit or how? So that was a thing that came out. And again, these right now are not law. These are things that were suggested to move from committee to for the board to vote on, the executive board. And then another thing was if you pull container chassis, if one of your container locks break, you can use a chain or a cable to secure the container to the chassis, excuse me, but only temporary. Do you take it, get fixed? You just can't continue to run around with it like that every day. So if something would happen, you can put a chain or a cable over it. No nylon straps or anything like that. It's got to be a wire rope or a chain, and you can deliver the container and then go get your container lock fixed correctly. Those were really the biggest things that came out of vehicle. And I was also set in training. There's really nothing there for trucking to worry about. It was mainly housekeeping for cops and how they get trained.
Right. We were talking a little bit before this. Speed limiters, that also came up, I think, right, during the workshop here. What can you tell us about that?
It was brought up because they always get reports in the committees from FMCSA and National Highway and a couple other groups, but it was brought up that there will probably be, as far as on the FMCSA side, there probably won't be any ruling or anything come out on speed limiters till this year. Yeah. Which probably makes sense since they don't have an administrator and it's an election year, and we're probably not going to get an administrator till next year. So, yeah.
But the process is still going on. The rulemaking process is still going on. We just won't have a rule come out until next year sometime.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean to not reaching out to your lawmakers.
Don't let up.
Yeah. Correct.
Don't let up. Full throttle. I mean, this just buys us more time to get people on Capitol Hill or behind the Drive Act and to get the Drive Act across the finish line. So get on fighting for truckers and reach out to your lawmaker.
And to that point, too, I think it's important that, most people listening are not going to go to one of these workshops. They're not going to participate in this process necessarily. But if they see something out there, if they have a problem, they should absolutely reach out to all of you here at OOIDA.
Just call compliance. If you're seeing an enforcement issue, because that's another thing, CVSA. If there's like some jurisdiction that's not inspecting something rightly, or there's a problem, or it's a train issue, they want to know. So yeah, if you're receiving tickets or parking there or something like you don't think you should be, call our compliance department. If we see a trend, we don't have any problem reaching out and trying to get that problem solved.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be the go-between and make sure that CVSA is aware of what's going on. We got to leave it there for now, but Paul, Doug, Louie, thanks to all three of you for stopping by and taking us behind the scenes. We appreciate it.